Hey, classmates. So I decided to do my case study this week on the Three Mile Island disaster in 1979. I chose to do this being from Pennsylvania. I feel like this one is kind of a gimme, best I can say, or a local one. Um, so the way a case study kind of starts is that you're the director of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, and you kind of get notified that a water pump for cooling in what they call a TMI, 3 Mile Island Unit 2, has failed. And within 5 miles of the actual power plant, there's about 25,000 people that live in that area. So obviously, I think your first plan of action is obviously to send an emergency response team there, as well as consider evacuating the neighboring communities and whatnot, or at least letting them know of possible evacuation. That way they can start planning for stuff. Obviously, notify federal, state, local authorities. Hey, there's a power plant going to have a meltdown in your backyard. Probably pretty important to know. And obviously, be real and notify the public. Don't sugarcoat it. Don't tell them false hopes like, oh, we have it under control. Meanwhile, alarms are going off and sirens are blaring. And um, so obviously, some resources you're going to need are some engineers, um, nuclear engineers, emergency response teams. And obviously, I think you need to have hazmat teams that specialize in radiology or radiological teams on standby. Probably need more than just one team, but you need down to kind of some ruralish areas. Probably gonna have to have a couple of teams just because of the distance they have to travel and dragging equipment and all that stuff. So stage 2 then goes into the reactor begins to overheat. Your meltdown is kind of starting to become a little more imminent. So what you need to do is just notify that all the crews that are working at the plant, make sure that they have their radiological gear on, their protective gear. I would notify the local hospitals to make sure that they have their radiological equipment because they'll probably have them in a locker in a closet somewhere. Make sure that that they maybe want to consider having additional staff or up their staffing because of this, and obviously consider additional radiological team responses and having more teams on standby and making sure that you get the radiological team equipment there that you're going to need. So stage 3 is the crews start to shut down the emergency core cooling pumps. What actually happens is there's actually a part malfunction along with the people kind of they're supposed to close off some of the valves manually, and some of the valves are actually stuck in the open position, as well as they kind of accidentally close off the emergency release valves. So kind of a whole bunch of wrong is going when you don't need it to go wrong, just kind of like anything in life. This kind of leads to radioactive coolant starts to leak. And reports are there's actually explosion in the containment building, So then you've got that to deal with. So the plan is you're going to need a lot of water. You'll have to flood that reactor to really keep it from melting. Reports were that it had already started to kind of melt because the water marker line was actually incorrect on it. So it actually didn't have enough water in there. Obviously, evacuation of nearby citizens due to the possible radiation leak and the meltdown. That's pretty much gonna start happening soon. So stage 4 is you have the explosion, so the plant is contaminated. You have high levels of radiation in the plant area. The plant is declared an emergency, and most of the core actually is melted kind of at this point. So the plan is obviously to cool the reactor to prevent further meltdown. So any water you can get to help cool it down, and check radiation levels for further exposure. So just go into the towns, make sure that there's not enough exposure over there. Be honest to the public about the meltdown, and be proactive with taking radiation tests everywhere you go, or the neighboring town jurisdiction, to make sure that this doesn't become a long-term health problem. So some of the issues it talks about is there should have been some redundancy in the systems, as well as there are some human errors and some mechanical errors made with the valves being stuck open, and then human error of people actually being stressed out, not really trained for it to these kind of disasters, and they were probably opening and closing the wrong valves. it talks about $973 million to do the cleanup of the area. It's considered the worst commercial reactor accident in U.S. history, and they actually removed over 100 tons of radioactive fuel were taken from the site. The plant actually opened in 1974, and that reactor went online. The second reactor went online in 78, had to melt down in 79, and has actually never been used since. But 3 Mile Island itself actually just redid Unit 1, and it can actually run to about 2034, best case estimates. However, due to some prices and some changes in the world's economy, more likely it looks like 3 Mile Island will probably close in 2019 just due to financial reasons. They currently still employ about 675 people at the power plant. So they're trying to look at ways to actually keep the plant open. It's one of the best plants that they still currently have, and estimated that Unit 1 actually powers about 800,000 homes in the area. So hope you guys like my case study. Look forward to hearing the feedback.